Welcome for those just joining. We're going to get started in a few seconds as people are joining in from the waiting room.
Oh, it's working 2 seconds ago. Congratulations,
Carol.
Stephanie, on your job. I don't know if she heard me.
There you are.
There I am. And my top of my head is snapped there. I have a definite problem with my camera. I think it's time to buy a new camera.
We will be getting started in just a few seconds here.
Stephanie, are you there?
I am here, yes.
Hi, congratulations on your
Thank
new
you
job.
so much. Thank you. I appreciate
That's
it.
exciting.
Very exciting, yes.
Okay, I think for the purpose of time, we'll get started here. I know others may be joining from the waiting room as we go here, but I am thrilled to welcome you all to the Women's Initiative Stepping Up for Girls Rise and Shine member event. I don't see much shine this morning on Friday the 13th. It's pretty rainy at my house, but I do have my coffee and hope you have your beverage of choice as well. And thrilled to have you all here. As a reminder for Zoom, if everybody could put yourselves on, if you aren't already, to help to better hear the speakers, that would be appreciated. And also it's helpful to put your setting on speaker view so you could really see the speakers very well. All right, so I want to call out our sponsors for this week's long celebration. Our signature sponsors, AbbVie, the Hanover Insurance Group Foundation, and our lead sponsor, Reliant Medical Group, wanted to call them out specifically. And for today's session, our networking sponsors, College of Cross, LLB Architects, and Carrie A. Melly, Commonwealth Financial Group. Thanks for all of your support for today's session and this whole week of activities in support of women's leadership and girls programming. And now I'd like to pass it over to our MC facilitator for today's session, Sherry Pitcher, who, among many things for Women's Initiative, is the event chair for this Stepping Up for Girls week-long event on 2 of our committees, which I hope that she tells you about, and a member of our Leadership Council. And in her day job is the Senior Vice President, Chief Life Design Officer at Fidelity Bank. So passing it over to you, Sherry. And just a reminder, please put yourselves on mute. I do hear some feedback from some folks.
Thanks, Em. Good morning, everybody. Happy to be here. As Emily said, I am Sherry Pitcher. I've been involved with the Women's Initiative for many years, and Emily asked me to share why I got involved with WI, and honestly, it's been so long, I can't really remember how I got involved. I think it was Ann Wettengill and my friend Kate Mishral that encouraged me to be a part of this awesome organization. But, you know, I really, over the years, have come to appreciate the mission of Women's Initiative, and that's, you know, igniting a positive change for girls in our community, foster independence for young women. I grew up with 2 sisters. I'm the middle of 3 girls, and I have a daughter of my own who's now 23 and graduated from college. So it's really, the mission is really, really important to me personally. And, you know, and in addition to that, the mission and how passionate.
Sherry, I think you ended up on mute somehow.
Someone muted me. They're always trying to shut me up. I don't know why.
You're all good now. Sorry.
So I was just sharing that I just really appreciate being able to work with some just incredible women and appreciate that opportunity as well. So with that, I want to introduce an incredible woman that I've had the opportunity to work with here at the Women's Initiative, Wendy O'Leary. She's a founding member and former chair of the Women's Initiative. This woman is amazing. She's an educator and author, and really has helped teaching people skills to support resiliency and well-being, which is really so important these days. She's a contributor to Shambhala and Mindful Magazine, where her recent articles have focused on the use of mindfulness in the midst of our current challenges, and it certainly is a very challenging environment that we're in right now. She's a guest lecturer, and she recently just published her first book, Breathing Makes It Better, which is co-authored by Christopher Willard, and her second book is due for publication in spring of 2022. So I'm gonna turn it over to Wendy.
Thank you so much for that introduction, Sherry. And I am just so pleased to be here with you all this morning. And I can see some of you, some of your little boxes and your faces. And though I really miss being together in person, it's just wonderful that we have this opportunity to come together. So I want to start out really by just acknowledging that we're in the midst of such difficult times. I think it's important to just stop and take a moment to acknowledge that, and that in the midst of these difficulties, many of us are in need of self-care more than ever. And yet we can find it really difficult to do. And so in my brief time with you this morning, what I'd like to do is to share a little bit about the benefits. What are the benefits that we get from self-care, in the hopes that that kind of motivates people to take the time to do that. And then also practice together some very concrete tips and practices for self-care. And I'd like to start by using this analogy that I have found really instructive and helpful in terms of like, how do we benefit? How do we actually get some benefit out of self-care? And so the analogy is, if you envision that we are just paddling down a river, right? So as we're going down this river, sometimes it's smooth and calm, and sometimes it's really turbulent and the waters are moving rapidly. And in those moments, for any of you who may have paddled, we know that it can be really useful to pull off into an eddy, a place of still water. And that's what we're talking about when we're practicing self-care. We're pulling off into an eddy. And why is this so helpful? Well, when we're in the midst of this turbulence, there are really three things that we benefit from by pulling off into an eddy. And I want to say that also when we do that, we are not at all abdicating responsibility. We are not getting out of the river. We're just taking a little break. And so what happens when we pull off into the eddy is, if we're in the midst of turbulence, our nervous system is activated, right? So many of you have heard of fight, flight, and freeze, that part of our nervous system that can get activated in the midst of difficulties. And when it's activated over a long period of time and highly activated, it's not good for our physical health or our mental health, and it really depletes our energy. So when we pull off into the eddy, the benefit of self-care in that way is that it allows us to re-energize. We just are taking a little breather. It allows us to calm our system down and re-energize, because we need that energy, we need that strength to navigate the waters ahead. So that's the first benefit of self-care, pulling off into the eddy. The second that I think is really important and is often kind of overlooked is that when we pull off in this way, it also allows us, because we're not in the midst of it, it allows us to have this view, right? We can look ahead and see, what do those waters look like? Where is the turbulence? And make some choice about how we want to navigate forward. If we're in the midst of it, we tend to be reactive, right? We're just kind of quickly doing whatever we need to do because we're kind of caught up in the turbulence. But when we pull into the eddy, we have an opportunity to pause and then make some choice about how to navigate going forward. And then the third benefit in terms of pulling off the eddy, when we do that, it also gives us an opportunity to see the longer view, right? We have a little shift in perspective. And that allows us to kind of stay clear with our intention so that if we get buffeted around by those waters, we can kind of reassess and come back and navigate. I talk about, and actually one of the articles I wrote was talking about intention as our rudder during stormy seas. So that intention can help us to kind of reassess and re-navigate as we move down these turbulent waters. And all of these things are really helpful in alleviating burnout, that capacity to re-energize, to take a little breather, and the ability to kind of have that long range intentional view. So how do we actually pull off, so to speak, into this eddy? How do we cultivate that? So I'm going to talk to you about 3 main ways that we can do that, and want to just stress that there are multiple ways, right? We have a short amount of time together. So I'm going to talk about 3 that really are specific to the kinds of work that I do. That said, it doesn't mean that things like eating well, getting a good night's sleep, exercise, social connection, and doing things that bring you joy, maybe getting out into nature, having a tea, whether it's over Zoom or in person with a friend, whatever those things are that bring you joy. Also, these are important ways to pull out into the eddy, to self-care. But the things that I would like to talk to you about are really connected to what I teach, which is mindfulness. So the 3 things I'd like to have us practice together and talk about today are how we calm our system, right? How do we create that still water? How do we tap into that internally? And we'll do a little practice for that. And being with what is, which can be counterintuitive, and we'll talk a bit about that. And then the third is cultivation. How do we cultivate some of these positive states of mind? If you're interested in diving more deeply into this topic of self-care and knowing sort of what are my cues that it's time for me to pull off into the eddy and a broader perspective, I am doing some talks with a colleague on Facebook that I post periodically, so you can check those out as well. But let's start talking about these 3 ways that we can cultivate self-care, beginning with calming our system. And instead of talking to you about it and sharing it, I really want us to practice these. So I hope that you'll indulge me and really check this out for yourself, right? This isn't sort of an intellectual pursuit. It's really an experiential pursuit. How do we practice this for ourselves? So if you're able to and comfortable doing so, I'm going to invite you to just close your eyes or to glance down. And the reason for this is simply that we're trying to kind of minimize external distractions for the time being. And then beginning by bringing your attention to your feet. So sensing the connection of your feet, if they're touching the floor, with a felt sense of your feet, almost like your attention is like a flashlight shining on your feet right now. And then taking your hands and placing your hands palms down on your thighs and feeling the connection there, cultivating a sense of grounded, stable presence. And then bringing the attention to the backs of the legs, feeling the legs connected to wherever you're sitting. Sensing gravity holding you here, rooted on the earth. Steady, grounded, stable presence. And from this place of stable, steady, grounded presence, inviting the body to soften and release. Relaxing through the face and the jaw, shoulders, through the center of the chest, the heart center. Asking yourself, can I soften just a little more? And then bringing the attention to the breath. Not breathing in any special way, simply feeling the breath. Breathing in, I know I'm breathing in. Breathing out, I know I'm breathing out. You can even add words to go with the breath. In, calm, out, peace. And then if your eyes are closed, opening your eyes or looking up. I just want to share a couple things about that practice. First, it only took us a couple minutes. And even if you didn't want to or don't have the time to separate out a few minutes to formally practice in this way, there are ways that you can integrate pieces of that practice throughout your day. You're sitting at your computer. For a moment, bring the attention down to the feet. Feel that sense of grounded presence. Or take 3 to 5 conscious breaths before you respond to that email or text. Or a practice that I've been doing frequently is just throughout the day saying to myself, can I soften just a little more? Throughout the day, as we're dealing with that turbulent water, our bodies tighten up. That simple reminder, can I soften? Allowing the body to soften is a way that we self-care and a way that we can pull out into the eddy. Now, all this is to say that it's also really useful to set aside a little bit of time to practice formally, and you could just do the body piece, just the softening, or the breath, or all of it. But what that does is it sort of starts to cultivate this pathway such that it's easier for us to access this throughout our day. So because I've been practicing so long, it's really easy for me in the middle of, say, a meeting to just bring my attention to my feet, even while I'm participating in the meeting. And it helps to give me some grounding and some presence and some calming. So when we're calming in this way, what we're doing is we're just allowing the nervous system to settle. And an image that I like for this is an image of, say you had a jar of water and there was mud in it. When we shake that up, the mud is stirred all around. And that's what happens when our system is activated. By taking a moment to come into present moment awareness like we did, you're allowing that mud to settle so that we can think more clearly. We're just giving ourselves a little bit of time. And what it does, by focusing on what's actually happening in the moment, it gives us a little break from this like discursive thinking, that constant chatter that's going on in our mind, which actually shakes that muddy water up again. So calming the system is the first way that I want to share that we can pull off into the eddy and playing with these practices. So the second way, being with what is, sounds kind of counterintuitive. A lot of times we think self-care is all about like getting away from the problem, going to do something fun, do something that makes us happy. And that's great and fine. And what we know from neuroscience is simply acknowledging difficulty is really a powerful way to work with it. And the reason for this, I like to use this model of a brain to help understand why this is the case. So this is a very simplistic model of a brain, but basically I use my arm and this part, the thumb, is the limbic system. This is the most ancient prehistoric part of our brain responsible for the fight, flight, and freeze, right? That reactivity. Takes good care of us, is very important. And then this part that wraps over it here, this is the more evolved part of our brain. This is where we do our reasoning, our higher order thinking. What happens though is when there's turbulent water, some difficulty, some intense emotional reactivity, a message goes up to the brainstem, hits our limbic system first, and the limbic system, which is in charge of keeping us safe and protecting us, says, oh, I'm in charge. I'll take care of this. And we flip our lid. This part of our brain goes offline. And I think many of us know how this feels, right? We've had experiences. And if you have children, we all have seen this in our children. Particularly, this is why they say you can't reason with a 3-year-old in the midst of a tantrum. This part of their brain, the reasoning, or an adult for that matter, in the midst of a tantrum, the reasoning part is offline. And what we know from MRIs is one way to bring this back online, as simple as naming the feeling. When we name a feeling, they can see in MRIs that lights up this part of the brain, brings it back online, and we're more integrated. So simply acknowledging what's happening can be a really powerful practice. For me, a lot of times in the midst of what's happening now, I'll just put my hand on my heart and say, this is hard. This is really hard. And when I've heard that done in meetings that I've been in, recently somebody in a meeting said, this is a mess. And you could feel this collective sigh of relief. It did not mean that they then went off in a story about it. People could move then to problem solving because they had that capacity. But the simple naming of what's happening is really powerful. So we call this name it to tame it, and is a really powerful practice. So the second practice, being with what is. The third practice that I want to share with you is cultivation. And the reason cultivation practices are so important is because when we're in the midst of difficulty, what we know about how the brain works is that there is what's called a negativity bias. And that is that negative experiences stick to our brain like Velcro, and positive slide out, just like Teflon. So we are more inclined towards negative experiences, to see them, to hold them, to remember them. And that's great for our survival as a species, right? Evolutionarily, that made a lot of sense. And yet it's not so great for our ongoing happiness because we're more inclined towards the negative. And so to combat that, to work with this negativity bias, it's really useful to have practices where we take in the positives and do that really actively. So I'd like to do a practice, and this is from Rick Hanson, who talks a lot about the negativity bias in his work. I'd like to do a brief take it in practice and ask you one more time to either close your eyes or to look downward. And this time I'd like you to bring to mind a time when you felt really happy, peaceful, content. And notice it from as many perspectives as possible. So taking it in terms of what you see, if there were any smells, tastes, What do you hear? And what can you touch? What are the tactile experiences here? So this could be a place or an experience or being with a person. Something that makes you feel happy, peaceful, and content. And now, simply noticing how it feels in your body. What does happiness feel like for you? And I want you to now intensify that feeling. So soaking it in, almost like a sponge soaks up water, taking in this feeling of happiness and peace. And now opening your eyes. And as you practice taking it in, a couple things to keep in mind. For me, I've been doing it for such a long time that I can just call up an experience and I can feel it in my body. The more you practice, the easier it is to access. But ideally with taking it in, whether it's something that's happening in the moment or something you're calling up in memory, it's really great to spend some time. Sometimes we'll have some positive experience and we're so quickly moving on to the next thing, like, oh, beautiful sunset. Now I have to do such and such. Stop and take it in. Duration is really important, 3 to 5 breaths. And then the second is the intensity. We want to intensify it. So duration and intensity. So that's that idea of letting it soak in on that cellular level so that our system can really take it in so that it doesn't slide off like Teflon. So there are countless other cultivation practices of gratitude, of compassion, of well wishes, of kindness. And because I would like to help segue into the next section of our conversation today, what I'd like to do is talk just briefly about the cultivation practice of service and compassionate action. And to do that by talking a little bit about my involvement with the Women's Initiative. For me, I stopped and thought, what did the Women's Initiative and my volunteer work here, what did that cultivate for me? And certainly I cultivated skills and I cultivated a broader social network, but also a sense of belonging, a sense of connection, a sense of purpose and meaning, a deepening of compassion. For me, how the Women's Initiative and my community service work has supported me in terms of my own self-care is that it has energized and inspired me. And in general, my self-care practices have had a tremendously beneficial impact in my life. And so it is my hope that you'll check out these practices as well and see if they can be of benefit to you. So I'd like to end with a poem, but to first just say that I wish you all the very best as you navigate the waters ahead. So this poem by Martha Postlewaite, The Clearing. Do not try to save the whole world or do anything grandiose. Instead, create a clearing in the dense forest of your life and wait there patiently until the song that is your life falls into your own cupped hands and you recognize and greet it. Only then will you know how to give yourself to this world so worth of rescue. Thank you.
Wow, thank you, Wendy. I love that poem. Maybe we can get that, write it down for us and share it with everybody, because I think that was pretty awesome. And thank you for those ways that we can help deal with stress. And I'm certainly going to try some of those tips that you shared. I could have used it last night, but better late than never. If you want to learn more about Wendy O'Leary and her work, she, of course, has a website. So it's pretty straightforward, www.wendyoleary.com. So thank you again. Thanks, Wendy. And now I'm going to introduce our next member testimonial, Stephanie Williams. Stephanie is a Women's Initiative Emeriti and a founding member of our diversity committee. She's coming, she presently works for the state of Massachusetts with the Department of Transitional Assistance, but you might have seen the announcement in the Worcester Business Journal earlier this week. She's going to be working for the city as the Chief Diversity Officer. So congrats to Stephanie, and thank you for being here. And I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you so much. Can everybody hear me okay? Awesome. Okay, great. Thank you. Yes, I am very excited to say I am the new Chief Diversity Officer for the city of Worcester starting November 30th. Super, super grateful for this opportunity. I'm also delighted that I've been a part of the Women's Initiative for a little over 10 years. And within that time, I've met a lot of some of the most inspiring women I've ever met. And so I was traveling last night and I had some time to think about my intentionality behind, you know, this part of today is to talk about, for those who aren't active members or haven't been for a while, to talk about, you know, what is your why? Why should you participate? And I really wanted to be intentional about my why. And so I was really pondering on it and made some notes. And so, you know, my experience with the Women's Initiative has been a wonderful opportunity, both socially, culturally, and professionally. Even in my first meeting, I was excited to be surrounded by such strong and talented women leaders. I had no idea who was in the room. I just knew there was power in that room. And then when I found out, I was even more convinced and assured of that. So, you know, as we've learned from the most recent election, women's courage and action are key to true positive change in all communities, in all countries. And organizations such as the Women's Initiative are critical in empowering women and girls by providing them with the opportunity to change their own lives and to learn the skills needed to transform their societies, right? And that's proven with Dollar Scholars and a lot of the other programs that we support annually. And so this is the exact moment, and somebody alluded to this, you know, in terms of what's happening today in America. This is the exact moment when the work that we've been doing around access, equity, and inclusion for girls should show up, right? So it's extremely important for us to speak out and encourage the work that Women's Initiative is doing during this pandemic and during this racial climate in America. So I hear a lot, whether it's, you know, through my social network or through my current work, I hear a lot where people use the term new normal. But the reality is, for many people, specifically girls and women, lack of access is their norm, right? And so we have to recognize that. And this is a tremendous opportunity to better understand the daily experience of those who do not have access to what they need to be successful, right? And so that's where the Women's Initiative contributes so much. And, you know, I know the Women's Initiative has already advanced many aspiring women on their journey. You've heard that yesterday in yesterday's presentation. You've heard it in many presentations. That's what, you know, Stepping Up is all about, is hearing from these young girls we've impacted and hearing their journey. And so, you know, we have an opportunity to really change and make an impact on our community in creating social change holistically, right? And so as a woman myself who has benefited and grown from just being a part of the organization, I am extremely, extremely confident that there is so much more to offer and there's so much more to do. So if you're not an active member, I would definitely encourage you to do so. Or if you've been idle as a member for quite some time, which I have to admit, I have I'm a member on paper, but in terms of actively being involved, I really haven't had the opportunity as much as I wanted to due to my work location. So now that I'm back in Worcester, my intentions are pure to be truly active as much as I can and continue to contribute to making that impact in our communities and in the people that we serve. So thank you, Women's Initiative. You're never getting rid of me.
Well, I feel sorry for Fitchburg, but we're happy to have you back here in Worcester, Stephanie. Thank you for sharing your why with us. And also, I just wanted to thank you again for being involved with our diversity committee and really taking a leadership role in leading our diversity, racial equity, and inclusion efforts. So thank you very much. And we look forward to seeing
Thank you.
how you do that. And now I'm going to introduce Jen Hubert, who is member of the Women's Initiative Marketing and Membership Committee. And she's going to talk about being becoming more involved. And maybe you could get some tips from her, Stephanie, and I can get more involved in here with the initiative. So I'm going to turn it over to Jen. And she does a great job doing all our social media too. So anything you see on social media is Jen, and I think she does an awesome job with that.
Well, good morning, everybody. Thank you for having me. So I guess I'll just talk about a little bit of how I got involved in Women's Initiative because it has many layers. So I'm born and raised in Worcester or around Worcester. Grew up in the surrounding towns, and the Women's Initiative is important to me because my great aunt Ellie Clifford was a founding member. And so I knew the Women's Initiative growing up. I knew how important community was from my aunt, how much she loved Worcester. She was very involved in Worcester, having been on like the advisory boards for like the community development. She worked in disability income insurance her entire life, and that has instilled in me. I work at Seven Hills Foundation currently, so her whole like motives and missions kind of were passed down to me. She always talked to me about how important being involved in your community is and building up your community, which is why when I started at Seven Hills and I met Kate Mishral and Liz Vidham, who are both on my team and were encouraging me to come to the first Women's Initiative meet and greet about 2 years ago. So after they heard about my aunt, like, you have to come meet everybody. And I've always wanted to have a great network of women because I think if we build up women and we build up young girls, like everybody has a bright future. So I think that it was important for me to get involved, and I went to Syracuse for marketing. I work in marketing at Seven Hills. So when there was a marketing committee, I was like, oh, well, that's a perfect fit. So I got involved in the marketing committee and have helped with the social media. For the last about year or so, we've worked to build up the social media and to really promote all the great work that we're doing here at the Women's Initiative. I'm happy to now be in the cohort for Leadership Worcester with Emily. So we have a few different instances where we're just really involved in like the community in Worcester. And I think that to get involved in your community and meet a lot of different people that bring a lot of different things to the table, different stakeholders, is important. And I hope I can continue to do that.
I'm taking myself back on. Thank you, Jen. Thank you for sharing that very personal story. And did I know you went to Syracuse? I think I did. That's where Haley graduated from. So great school. So with that, I'm going to just take a minute to tell you guys a little bit about the Women's Initiative and how you can become a member. It is $100. So we would love to have, if you're not a member of Women's Initiative, please consider joining. Once you become a member, there's so many benefits. Our leadership network, you can serve on one of our committees, and most of all, and the most important thing is the mission, and that's supporting girls in Central Mass, as well as as everyone sort of talked about, the benefits of being connected to all these amazing women in our region. So we have 5 committees. We talked about Jen and the work that she's doing with our marketing and membership committee. But I just want to tell you a little bit about some of the other committees that we have. Our Community Impact Committee, really, and all the committees are important, but this one is really where the mission really gets, we really get to make an impact. We determine the distribution of the funds that we raise and evaluate their impact on the community. So that's where our dollars really get put to work and go directly towards supporting all the different programs in Central Mass. Financial literacy, If you might have heard of our Dollar Scholars program, so we support the execution and growth of our signature, that Dollar Scholars program, which is taking a little bit of a different form right now, but I'm sure we'll be back soon, meeting with the girls. And there's opportunities if you haven't been a mentor or facilitator for that program. It's awesome. Marketing and membership. So grow the membership through events and marketing efforts. So events like this. We have our Tuesdays with WI, which hopefully we'll be doing again soon. And we may do some sort of virtual things. And so tons of ways to get involved through that committee. And then as we talked about Stephanie, one of the founding members of our diversity committee. So we really, with this committee, want to be intentional about promoting diversity, racial equity, inclusion, and that goes for our leadership, membership, and programming. So if you want more information, please feel free to reach out to any one of us. We're going to be sending out an email, which will have more ways that you can donate. And we're very, very modern on this donation. You can do Venmo, you can have it, you don't have to pay all the $100 at once. If you want to donate more and make a monthly donation, we can certainly set that up. And right when you join Women's Initiative, at that time you can join a committee, and then once you do that, we can set up a meeting. You can meet the other members of the committee and the chairs of that committee. So we're going to be another way to stay connected with us is obviously, I know we talked about Jen and all the work she's doing on social media, so pretty active there with Facebook and Instagram. So we really use those vehicles to promote a lot of our events. So from here, I'm going to transition to our breakout sessions. I want to thank you all for joining, and thank you again to Wendy for sharing her story about self-care, and Stephanie and Jen for sharing their testimonials and why they got involved with Women's Initiative. So we really hope we see you guys soon at another event or committee. So I realize we're getting close to the time here, but if you wanted to stay on, we're going to do some little networking sessions here and just break out into just smaller groups.
Thanks, Sherry. I just want to add that I will be following up with those who've registered for today's session, and they'll send a pledge form that includes how to join as a member if you aren't already, but also has our list of committees that you can click off on the form, and we will follow back up with you with more information about participating, the meeting schedule, and do more of an introduction with that committee for you. So look out for that from WI following this session. I am going to share my screen. Thank you, Sherry. Thank you, everybody who participated in today's session. Here are our social media links to follow us and to learn more about Women's Initiative. And then for our breakout session. So this is something new for us, virtual, but we know this is such a big part of being part of our group is connecting, right? And we miss that. So I will be breaking you out into small breakout sessions and would like you to take that time to introduce yourself, your name, profession. If you'd like to add how you've been involved with Women's Initiative, feel free to do that. You can also talk about what would you tell your middle school self about being a leader? That can be a fun point to discuss as a group, as well as sharing your own self-care tip. We all have some of our special things that we do for ourselves that we could share with others. So those are the breakout session instructions guide, however you'd like to make that for your group. Introducing yourself, talking about what you would tell your middle school self about being a leader, and sharing a self-care tip. So with that, I am going to break us out into breakout rooms. And following that, we'll have about 15 minutes to discuss in our breakout rooms. Following that, we'll bring you back to the main session, but I will give you a warning for that.
Good, how are you?
I'm wonderful.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, how are you?
Hi.
I'm Oh, go ahead, Patricia. Excuse
Oh
me.
no, I was just to say I'm good. I had my video off most of this time because I was trying to give my daughter breakfast and she made a mess. So, but she is calm now. So figured I'd make my face
I
shine
think
again.
that I'm gonna have to leave because one of my self-care things is I play duplicate bridge online and relax playing bridge. Sounds crazy.
Fun.
But I do. So I've got a game at 9:30. But I was just thrilled this whole week to see, as you noticed, I'm an old member. I was one of the women who sat in Lois Green's condo 18 years ago to start this organization because she was my mentor for 30 years. I still miss her terribly. I don't think any of you knew her because she's unfortunately been dead for a while, but she was an amazing woman. So she would be so thrilled to see this week happen. I can't tell you. She would just be ecstatic to see so many young people, see so many people attending. Yesterday was amazing. It was, those three women were so great. So I'll shut up. And that was my thing.
I agree. I think this week has been just amazing to witness, and I'm happy to be a part of it. And like I mentioned, I have a great mentor who actually was, I think, the first director. Kate Mishral is my mentor. So I just am happy to be on the Women's Initiative. And obviously, my aunt meant a lot to me. So just being a part of this, however many years later, is great. So.
Kelly and Beth, tell us about yourself.
So I can go ahead. My name's Kelly Johnson. I work at DCU as a public relations specialist, and I got involved with the Women's Initiative through the Dollar Scholar program. I'm very focused on, financial wellness and really empowering our youth to at least be exposed to what finances and budgeting looks like. And if not, being a mentor for them while they have those great questions at the activities we do. So happy to have gotten DCU involved and happy to myself be involved. I think one of the questions was, what is a leader? What does being a leader mean to you? And I think it means, always waking up and trying your best, even if yesterday wasn't such a good day. So happy to be here with you all.
Nice to meet you.
And I'm Beth Butler. I'm the Director of Programs at Dress for Success Worcester.
Can you turn your volume up? It's hard to hear you.
Sure. My name's Beth Butler, and I'm with Dress for Success Worcester. I'm the Program Director. And how I got involved with Women's Initiative was through Ann Wettengale. So she was a mentor of mine as when I transitioned out of another industry into the nonprofit industry. So she kind of took me under her wing and taught me a lot of what I know today. I'll just put it that way. So she got me involved in Women's Initiative. The mission of Dress for Success Worcester is about working with women to make them self-sufficient and to move forward in their lives. One of the things is we all know that if you are affecting young girls by age 9 is when their confidence levels start to either be defined as good or they can plummet very quickly. So by being involved with Women's Initiative, it's not only helping women, but it's also helping the young ladies who are developing, and the sooner that we can teach them about financial literacy and education, the better off they're going to be as adults. Because that first credit card you get, or the first time that you get a job and you spend all that money, you're not thinking about what your future is unless you know how to spend that money. And so what Women's Initiative does with the Dollar Scholar is very important, because a lot of parents don't know how to manage money. So if you're not taught from a very early age, you're not going to apply that in adulthood until you really, really have to or want to. So, and, we do a lot of financial literacy programs for adult women, and it's amazing. I'm in my 50s, and it's amazing that I'll meet other women who don't even know, like, when it comes to rent or certain payments, how you build credit or how you ruin your credit. Most people are not fully aware of how that is determined and how that can determine certain things in your life. Even getting employment can be determined by your credit score. So one of the questions was, what would I tell my middle school self about being a leader? Is just do it. Don't be afraid of it. Don't fear something in life until you try it. And the other part is you don't have to be perfect at it. So
Thank you, but I gotta go. I gotta do self-care.
Have fun, Carol.
Bye, Carol. Good seeing you.
I see you. See you soon.
All right.
Bye.
Have a good day. Bye.
Beth, I did some self-care this weekend and organized my closet, and I have some professional clothing that has your name on it, really, for Dress for Success. Are you guys still taking donations right now? What does that look like?
right now, because of COVID and the fact that Worcester had been in red up until the state changed how they were qualifying it last week, we have not phased donations, clothing donations back in. But
Okay.
what I will ask you to do is, if you have closet space or space somewhere, is
Hold
just
on.
hold on to it, because we are doing, they're called reimagined remote suitings. Yes, that's a tongue twister, where we use Zoom, and we work with the women through Zoom and then do contactless pickup of the suitings, whether it's for the interview or whether it's for employment. And so we will be in need of clothing soon, but we just have not phased it back in.
Wonderful. How do I look out for that information?
Well, I know who you are, Kelly, TCU. So we have a list of running, and if you want to, you can also send an email to worcester@dressforsuccess.org and just put that you'd like to make a donation to us. And I have a running list there, and we're working on a short video to just show like what we're taking in, how to make sure that it's processed, so that we can take it in effectively, and then sending out the link so that you can log in to make that donation.
All right, I'm emailing you right now.
Awesome, thank you. And thank you for, looking at that and thinking about that, because that's something, it really changes how a person sees themselves when they receive clothing that a lot of times they've never even imagined. We did one of our remote suitings last week, and it was a camel hair coat with pick stitching on it. And she was like, I've seen those in, like magazines and catalogs. She's like, I never have had one. And she's a mother of 2 children, and she's like sitting there re-entering the workforce, and seeing herself now as not only a mom but as that professional really changes how you go at looking for that job.
Absolutely. I think I heard someone speak at one of your Dress for Success, and she said when she was kind of on her low end, someone came to her, a mentor, and said, oh, I have this old dress that I'd love you to have, this old suit. And so the woman took it and was really felt empowered by it. And then after the woman really became successful, the woman who gave her the suit said, I have to confess to you that wasn't mine. I saw it in the store. I thought of you and I bought it, but I
Yep.
didn't want you to know that I bought you something.
Yeah, that was 2 luncheons ago, and her name was Cami Baker. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's truly amazing because I'm amazed on a daily basis of the women and their strength, and they don't see their strengths a lot of times. So yeah, it's a lot of women are supporting other women out there, and a lot of men are supporting women out there. So
Sorry, excuse me.
Bless you.
Thank you. Should have muted that.
so
I can't remember the questions. I know that you said one of it was like middle school girl, like what I would tell myself, right?
Yep.
About like being a leader. And I think what I would say is that just because you're leading, it could be leading by example. It doesn't mean you have to be a boss. It doesn't mean you have to be like bossing people around. It can just be leadership. It has like a lot of diverse meanings, I think. I think leadership is just like how you live your life, how you lead your life. You can be a leader for yourself. You can be a leader for others. And if you're a leader for yourself, a lot of the times you will become a leader for others. So if you're proud of yourself and like what you're doing for whatever it is, for your own self-care, to like improve your job, to do whatever it is, you don't have to have the title like boss or manager or anything to be a leader. And that's what I think I would tell my middle school self.
I think that so many women put on themselves that becoming a leader is that title versus how you said it, Jennifer, is it's more about just being your authentic self and empowering others to be their authentic self more than just necessarily that title.
Exactly.
And not that if you want to go for that title, if you want to become that person, if you want to become the first female president, we're going to support you. But at the same time, too many women think that leadership comes from power and not empowerment.
Yes, exactly.
So, and it's amazing.
That's what I was trying to say. Very nice.
And it's amazing when you see another woman who is leading by that empowerment example, and they're doing it because it's just what they have to do or what they feel they have to do because it's authentic to them, versus that one who's trying to make people follow them. And as you get older, especially, you see that difference. And it helps with your confidence level too, because you're putting it out there rather than reserved because how's somebody going to judge you? If you're authentic, you're not worrying about that judgment piece. And if you make a mistake, okay.
Authenticity goes a long way.
Yeah. So.
Oh, we're returning. Nice to meet you all.
Yes, it was.
Nice to meet you as well.
Thanks for everything. Definitely great to meet you, ladies.
So
and
now,
Beth, I already sent that email off. So
awesome. Thank you. I'll be sending you back.
Okay, I think we have everybody back.
Everybody back? Okay, great, awesome. Well, I just wanted to, I think we lost a few people, but thank everyone for joining us, for supporting the Women's Initiative. Be on the lookout for some other virtual sessions that we're gonna hopefully run this winter. Ooh, winter, it's coming, but it's all right, we're gonna get through it. We're gonna get through it together. And we definitely look forward to seeing everyone again soon. So check us out. If you wanna join, get more involved with the committee, donate, anything, just reach out. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great Friday.
Bye. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Nice meeting
Thanks, Sherry,
everyone.
for all your work putting this week together.
Thank you.
Great job.
Bye.
Bye.